Fine. I have heard the people. I will explain to you the Monty Hall problem. A lot of people get tripped up about this one. It's actually way more complicated than you think. What a disaster. The default game scenario. You are on a game show. You're asked to pick between one of three doors. Math's hard. One of them has a sports car behind it, and the other have two goats. Imagine that this is a sports car, and imagine that these two watches from Holtzkern, sponsored, use code Jorbs 10% off. I just like my watches. Are goats. You pick one of the doors. The host has to open one of the doors you didn't pick to show you that there is a goat behind it. So you picked one door. The host then opens one of the other two doors and shows you a goat. There were two goats to begin with in one sports car. The host then asks you, would you like to switch? Would you like to switch doors from this door, which you picked, to this door, which is the door that I didn't open out of the two that you didn't pick? You want to pick the other door? You want to pick this? What do you want to do? Yeah. What do you pick? Here's a visualization of 4 possible worlds that we could be in. Note everything else about the world is the same. These worlds presuppose that all that has changed is which door the sports car is behind and which door the game show host opened. In Universe 1, the sports car is behind door A, which we picked. I'm saying that we picked door A in every universe, just because I did. I don't know. It doesn't matter, right? You could just say I picked door B, but then you could call door B door A. The doors do not actually have names, they're doors. Door A has, in this scenario, the sports car behind it. And so the host, having to reveal a door which has a goat behind it, can choose. They can either choose to reveal the goat behind door B or the goat behind door C. Note that in this scenario, we want to stay with our original pick of door A because it has the sports car behind it. If we switch to door C in this world or door B in this world, we will get a goat instead of a sports car. And that will, I guess, make us sad. I don't know. Lovely goat. But what if the sports car was actually behind door B? Well, having picked door A, Monty Hall cannot reveal the goat behind door A, and so Monty is reduced to only one option to reveal the goat behind door C, meaning that in the universe where the goat was behind door B, the sports car was behind door B. If we switch from door A, we will actually get the sports car now, and the same like symmetrical situation. If the sports car was behind door C, the host has to reveal the goat behind door A, and so we can switch to get the sports car behind door C. It's a slightly illogical problem, but like it ends up being pretty straightforward. If we chose the sports car, which is only a 1 in 3 chance, then we should stick with our current door. But if we didn't choose the sports car, which is a 2 in 3 chance, because 1/3 chance of this world and 1/3 chance of this world, then we should switch. So, 2/3 chance to get the sports car, so we switch. 1/3 chance to get the sports car if we stay on our current door. Straightforward, a little bit tricky, and it trips people up. And I've heard a lot of people kind of like get a bit like, you're bad at games, you don't understand, like, well, you're just not like getting it, like your brain's not clicking. Which is very important. It's very important to be superior if you understand something about a made-up field that uses math to say weird shit about the world. And other people are like, well, that sounds kind of weird. Are you sure? Anyway, you should switch. Sports car is 2/3 likely to be behind the other door and 1/3 likely to be behind yours. To maximize your chance of getting the sports car instead of a goat, you should switch your choice of door. And if you'd like to fix your intuition about this, if that isn't intuitive to you at first, a couple of techniques that help people fix their intuition is to consider that Monty, the game show host, is essentially giving you the option to pick both other doors at once. Um, so in this universe, if you switch to the other, well, in these two universes, I guess, if the sports car is behind the other door, if you switch, you always get it. So in the universes where the sports car is behind the other door, the way that the game show host is opening a door means that now you're getting to always get the sports car if it was behind another door. You're basically choosing both of the other doors, essentially. And if that doesn't click still, imagine if there were 100 doors. I didn't make a slide with 100 doors, but imagine you pick one door over here, and the game show host's like, it's not behind this door, and it's not behind this door, and it's not behind this door, 98 times. And then there's only like the door you picked and one other door, and he's like, well, I've shown you the doors I can show you. Would you like to switch? At that point, you may be like, well, gee, it was like 1 in 100. I picked the right door to begin with, and then he just showed me 98 doors it wasn't behind, and there's some reason he didn't show me that one too. You might start thinking, gee, that other door looks like it could have a sports car behind it. It could be perhaps also that it is sports car shaped, and the door you picked has been bleating. I don't know. Anyway, the Monty Hall problem is fairly rigidly stated, and without its exact statement, the conclusions in it do not follow. For example, what if Monty doesn't have to show you what's behind other doors and is adversarial to you? You could imagine a situation where he would open as many doors as he could to try to encourage you to switch away from the sports car, if you selected the sports car. But if you chose the goat, he'd just be like, okay, have the goat. Cool. So a different universe. I didn't make a slide for this, but like in this universe, he does all of that shit. Sure. Tries to convince you to switch into door B or C. And in these universes, he's just like, okay, cool, have a goat. um, so, so, if Monty's doing that, switching is going to mean you literally never get a sports car, which sounds bad. That sounds like a bad strategy for you, right? Yeah. Also, statistics in game theory are made up, and you aren't good at either of them. And I don't mean that as an insult. I just, neither am I, really. Very complicated fields. This problem assumes you want a sports car more than a goat. Okay. Game theory has to assign value to different things, but whether that value matches your personal ethos and priorities is up to you. You might like a goat more. It's allowed. What if the sports car is 30 years old and won't turn on? What if the goats will be incinerated if you don't pick them? Toy problems in game 3 like this one. This is called like a toy problem. Like it's simplified down to the simplest possible kind of essence in order for you to see how the math works in it. And then if you go out into the real world and look at situations which can compare, often they are like more complicated, but you'll think, oh, what about that toy problem, which was kind of like this? We could try to apply it here. Anyway, toy problems in game theory like this one carry assumed value statements about our culture, which do not necessarily match your individual beliefs. Game show host's a man, by the way. A consequential problem is that it can be hard to teach game theory to people culturally different from us. Their different assumptions lead to different conclusions. Also, game theory can impart a sense of superiority onto those of us whose beliefs about the world match the things that game theory is saying we should want to get, while other people who are like, I don't actually want to maximize my money, I would like to maximize my happiness or my usefulness to the people I love. Those people are like, well, gee, this mathematical paper about how to turn your life into dollar bills is not compelling to me. Yeah. Talking about statistics now more than game theory, statistics also made up. The problem assumes that there's an equal likelihood of goats starting behind each door, which is a really fascinating thing to assume. So that's kind of a new thing, like like as an assumption that's only centuries old, and humanity has existed for a lot more than centuries, but um, we have started by assuming that there are lots of different things the world could be when you could just go look behind the doors and see which one has the sports car behind it. The world can only be one thing, actually. I mean, for the most part, there's some weird physics things going on. I don't know physics either. Um, but yeah, at some point, somebody put two goats behind two of the doors and a sports car behind another. Why can't you just like work out which door has the sports car behind it? Are you allowed to just go look? Could you listen? Could you like start thinking about the psychology of the game show host in paper, scissors, rock, or rock, paper, scissors? Starting throw probabilities according to the World Rock, Paper, Scissors Association are rock 35%, paper 28%, scissors 26%. Does that add up to 100? I didn't actually check. I should have checked. It looks like with rounding it does. So yeah, analyzing rock, paper, scissors as though rock is 33% likely to be thrown would be consequentially inaccurate. And also, your opponent's going to throw one of the three. Your opponent isn't going to like throw their hand and then it morphs into three hands at the same time, and each of them is 1/3 of the hand, or in this case, 35%, 28%, and 26% rounding down of the hand. They're just gonna throw one thing. So like, statistics is actually very weird. You may have lived your entire life with like statistical assumptions and analysis presented to you in a way where it now feels intuitive and straightforward to you, but this is not a thing that humans would have found straightforward to understand for most of human history. And introducing the idea that there are actually lots of different worlds to consider at the same time is not without consequence to human decision making, I wouldn't say. There's only one world, by the way. So, our analysis of the toy game began by observation of the three relevant worlds we might be in. There's only actually one world, and the goat we want, because it is friendlier and better at eating weeds than the goat we don't want, is behind door A in the world we're actually in, I've just decided. And given that, using some complicated technologies which we don't even really understand in order to switch which door we're picking is going to feel really bad. I picked door A. It has my new goat, Frank, behind it, and I would like to have my goat now. A thorough deconstructing of the Monty Hall problem. Let's think about iteration for a second. Because toy games are meant to model real-world scenarios. Suppose we play something like a Monty Hall problem every day in our life somehow, maybe in business, maybe in some sort of relationship with another human being. If our adversarial game show host, suppose that they are adversarial, game theory often assumes that the other actors in the world want their own things, and we want our own things, and so, like, we want to get, I guess, the sports car, and the game show host wants to keep the sports car so that they can use it for the next show. If our adversarial game show host realizes we switch every time that we play the game, we'll never win the prize we want, because they will start only offering us the chance to switch if they notice that we picked the prize on our first guess. Another way, though, that we could do this, we could pick a door and just stick to it. And if they offered us a chance to switch, we could say, like, no, it's okay. I made the decision with the information that I had, and you giving me new information as someone adversarial to me is not going to change my mind. And if we do that, the game show host, too, again, is a he, because this was made by people who were into math in the late 20th century. Mid to late 20th century. Also, while talking about a game show host. Anyway, our adversarial game show host recognizes he can't manipulate us into giving away our prize, and we will get the prize 1 time out of 3, which is really the best we should be able to do if we are picking like 1 good prize out of 3 options. We should get it 1/3 of the time. It's a little unrealistic to think we're going to get it more than that, right? There are, by the way, other decision-making technologies, and this is, I think, to me, perhaps the most interesting thing about game theory and statistics. They're being introduced as decision-making technologies to cultures and societies which already had decision-making technologies, and those decision-making technologies which they already had were able to develop in like evolutionary ways over thousands of years. Sometimes they are probably tied to like the beginning of humans not being not humans. um, like I think it is fairly likely that one of the principal things that caused humans to start organizing in societies or whatever was that we developed some sort of decision-making technology which was helpful to allow us to do that and organize at a larger level. The golden rule comes up a lot. Eye for an eye comes up a lot. These are sorts of decision-making technologies which you see iterated again and again in successful human societies throughout the world. And I think one way of framing that, the golden rule, is just like treat others how you would like to be treated yourself. That isn't in game theory and statistics. Game theory and statistics do not state treat others as you would like to be treated yourself. In fact, they specifically state not to do that. And one way to frame the golden rule is to be like, well, that's just like human nature and everyone like gets that, sure, but like we're trying to move past such simple ideas and like get better at this, use some science and some logic. But another way to frame the golden rule is like that is an instrumental building block of all human society and needs to be how we make decisions. And if you frame the invention of new decision-making technologies like game theory and statistics as ways for people to make weird assumptions about the world, which are non-intuitive to a lot of people, use arithmetic based on assumptions which began with statements about value, which are not scientific, but are rather cultural, like a sports car is better than a goat. Money is better than happiness. I don't know, whatever you want to maximize for. If you take that decision-making technology, which is new, and use it to supplant other decision-making technologies, like treat other people how you would like to be treated yourself, one framing of it is like we're getting better at making decisions, and another framing of it is we are undermining a central technology to the existence of modern human society and the flourishing of humankind overall of human history in essentially every human society. Which sounds worse. But anyway, game theory and statistics are just one way to make and/or inform decisions. They are often based on rigid assumptions which are knowably and provably untrue, and which remove the situations they describe from the real world. You are bad at both of them. You are bad at game theory and you are bad at statistics. They are complex fields which require years of study to understand. I am not saying you are stupid. I am saying you are bad at them in the same way that you are bad at heart surgery. Dissecting a frog in middle school did not make you a qualified heart surgeon. Even if you went to medical school and studied medicine for a long time, you are probably still not good at heart surgery. It's like a very, very specific thing. Behavioral economics kind of slaps, though. I'm kind of into behavioral economics. I don't know. Anyway, the Iliad. You knew I was going to talk about the Iliad at the start of this, right? Like, how could I not? The Iliad is cool because before we even had writing, we were already telling stories. And we had oral traditions of storytelling, like over the course of centuries or millennia, the same sorts of stories were being told over and over and over again. And so we got to a point where there were kind of like rote plot points and themes in large bodies of oral literature, which would be performed at festivals or at dinner parties by poets whose like job was to know these stories. Kind of, you can kind of compare to religious leaders. I think that's maybe the closest sensible comparison that we have in our world now, where like somebody giving a sermon at a church might like reference some text at some point, but they're also often largely like going off memory, talking about stories from whichever religion. I guess I said church, but whichever religion they are leading a service or what have you for. And they're like imputing the meanings that are culturally understood out of those stories, etc., etc., etc. Anyway, the Iliad was like the first time in the ancient Greek world that people wrote down any of these stories that had been told orally for thousands of years. And so you get crystallized, very old human thought. Some of the oldest human thought that you can find is like, what is writing if not like putting what you're thinking on a piece of paper? I don't know. You often actually get into the internal mind states of the characters. Anyway, although not like very explicitly, it's very much show don't tell. Yes, it's a canonized version of the oral tradition which existed in the Proto-Indo-European language world pre-writing. Another really cool thing about the Iliad is that because these stories were spreading through trade routes and so on and so forth for millennia before they were actually written down, you can find like a version of a story like the Iliad written down in cultures from Ireland to India, and they are all slightly different, but also all like similar in lots of ways. And I mean similar not just thematically and like plot wise. I also mean similar like structurally, because these were poems which were performed in meter. And so you'll have things like noun adjective pairs in ancient Greek and Sanskrit, where the noun and adjective pair mean the same thing, are in the same place of the poetic line, and the written version of the story is using an archaic form of the words, which wouldn't have existed in spoken language when it was written down, because they had to keep the weird form of the adjective that fit the right number of syllables to fit into the line in that position, in that line. It's like structural, narrative, thematic. It's really cool. Anyway, but in Greek epic, decision-making and its consequences are duly determined by the actions of mortals and gods. This is actually like really weird, but I'm just gonna state it like it's normal, because like people keep telling me this for statistics. So when Achilles succeeds in combat at Troy, Achilles, very strong warrior, swing sword, but also favored by Zeus, right? I think so. It's because he's a strong warrior who lives the life of a strong warrior, and it's because a god worked with him to achieve their mutual goal. Dual determinism in like ancient Greek culture meant that in order to achieve something, in order to do the thing that you wanted to do, you needed to do the things that would make it happen, and you needed to be assisted and like approved by one of the pantheon of Greek gods who would help you to do that thing. And so farmers had shrines where they prayed to a god of the harvest or goddess of the harvest, but then they also went out on their field and did the things that you need to do to get a good harvest. And both of those things were important to get the harvest that they were looking for. So we are picking here between incel, game theory. How do I pick the world I would most like to be in out of all possible worlds in order to get the thing I want? And Chad, dual determination. How do I act with excellence such that a god is compelled and able to assist me in achieving what I was born to do in the world I'm actually in? So, weirdly, but maybe not so weirdly, the 5,000-year-old technology which humans use to establish society actually feels like it has quite a lot going for it over the 100-year-old technology which humans use to justify eugenics. What? I didn't mention that yet, I don't think. Anyway, one option compels you to be a badass, and the other compels you to do unintuitive arithmetic, which you'll probably get wrong, and which doesn't mean anything if you get it right, because you based the arithmetic to begin with on value judgments which were not scientific, they were cultural. Yeah, statistics kind of awkward. Three white guys got on early 20th century instant messenger together and invented a field to justify racism better. Does using a sample of a population to make statements about the larger population sound like it could be a problematic approach in some situations to you? Like white people doing things in the late 19th, early 20th century, maybe. Yep. And game theory is primarily applied to war and profit, with failures to make compelling choices between short and long-term value. Have you ever heard of the climate crisis? How does game theory say that we should approach the climate crisis? Game theory says game theory has lengthy articles about how the climate crisis will kill us. That's what game theory offers as our solution to the climate crisis. Game theory is like, that seems really bad. This is a situation where humans will fail and die. That's what game theory has to say to help us. So, anyway, why does nobody invoke Athena and state with certainty that the goat they want is behind the door they initially chose? I don't know. You are bad at statistics and game theory. Pick something fun at least. Now you understand the Monty Hall problem.